Hello everyone, this is part 8 of What If Naruto Had a Proper Teacher, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more, comment down below. The procedure on Choji. He would keep the prosthetic leg, but soon it would actually graft skin and nerves through the prosthetic leg to the bottom of the artificial foot. Chakra could then flow on flesh, allowing Choji to use the leg. It would also respond much better to him than a normal prosthetic. Soon it had to have Jiraiya use a seal that kept the flesh from decaying since no nutrients could flow to it. The procedure was not dangerous to Choji, however it was extremely difficult to do and it took hours of painstaking precision before Tsunade and Shizune were finished. Choji would not be able to use all of his family jutsu, but he could definitely now once again be a member of Asuma's team. Tsunade was thanked over and over again by Shikamaru, Choza, Ino and many others. Tsunade felt a warm glow of accomplishment fill her. She had forgotten what it was like to heal shinobi from Konoha. Walking back to her temporary abode, she did not feel the sadness and despair she normally did when walking the paths of Konohagakure. Perhaps it's time I stayed here. Shizune is happy and I'm sure I could convince Jiraiya to start a medical program like I had always wanted. Kakashi met with the god Hokage towards the end of his team's week off of serious missions. It was late at night and Jiraiya was still doing paperwork. Kakashi chuckled as he entered. Good evening, Hokage-sama. Jiraiya had sensed him as he came into his office and looked up. This is your fault, you know. Kakashi gave him an eye smile. My fault. That you have become Hokage and are ensuring our village's protection. Why yes. Yes it is. The Toad Sage grumbled. Gloat all you want behind that mask, Kakashi, but because of you there won't be any more Ika books. Kakashi scratched at his mask. Well, that is powerful incentive for me to stop punishing you. Jiraiya looked at him with a puzzled expression. What do you mean? Well, with the training I've used with my students I've learned how to deal with paperwork, but I had been keeping it from you since you nearly got my students killed fighting Orochimaru. Jiraiya nervously laughed. Oh come on now. How was I supposed to know he would be there? And then you did let yourself be drugged. Jiraiya growled. All right, enough. Tell me how to escape this paperwork. The Hokage glared at Kakashi and warned, and if you say a Kaitenjutsu I will be assigning you D-rank missions for the rest of your career. Kakashi chuckled. No need to be so hasty. It's simple. Kakashi stared at Jiraiya for a few seconds, letting the tension mount. Cage. Bunshin. Jiraiya's eyes popped to their widest possible. The Cage Bunshin could do the paperwork for him. He could easily create a couple and have plenty of time to do research, write his novels and just relax while all the work got done. Jiraiya had tears in his eyes. Kakashi, thank you. I thought my life was over, stuck behind this desk never to experience the joy of a sweet round. Kakashi cleared his throat loudly. For some reason he was okay with reading his erotica, but to hear Jiraiya go on about the research that supported was disquieting. Yes, well, I do expect the next book to be autographed. And maybe a little insert thanking me personally for the series being able to continue wouldn't be too out of line either. Jiraiya laughed. You got it, kid. Jiraiya was dancing for joy on the inside, but he put on his Hokage face and simmered down as he got down to business. All right, Kakashi, you mentioned earlier you had a plan you wanted to run by me. Hi. Since you have nixed the strike at Tsuna, I believe we should deal with Orochimaru before he can rebuild his shinobi force. Here is what I have in mind. Kakashi was quite detailed in his plans and Jiraiya was soon nodding in agreement. It would be risky, but it was far past time for the snake to be brought to justice. Naruto liked to position one of the clones he had disguised as a villager at the gates on Konoha. That meant he was the first of the rookies to see Team 8 return from their mission. He was shocked as they were bustled in by a second team that included medical nin. Shino and Hinata were walking on their own, though they both had bandages on them. Kurenai was being helped a pair of shinobi while Kiba was being hauled in by a stretcher. Naruto removed the henge and approached Hinata. What happened? He was anxious. He hated to see his comrades injured. While it was just a clone, it still had the same feelings and thoughts as the original. When he dissipated, those same feelings and thoughts would transfer over to the real Naruto. Hinata looked at Naruto. She didn't blush or fidget, she just tiredly said, "We were ambushed, Iwagakure." Naruto looked at the stretchers and swallowed thickly. "Are they going to be okay?" Hinata looked downcast as she responded, "Kurenai will be, but I don't know about Kiba. He lost a lot of blood and his heart stopped. If Shino hadn't learned basic medical training, he would be dead." Naruto wasn't sure what to say but felt obligated to say something. "Everything I've read about Inuzukas tells me they have great stamina and recuperative powers. I'm sure he'll be fine." "Hinata, were you hurt?" She looked at Naruto hoping his words were accurate. "I suffered some injuries but took no serious wounds." But, Hinata blamed the lack of sleep and exhaustion. Kakashi had trained her better than this. Forcing herself to calm down, she spoke clearly, "I killed 2 Iwa shinobi. I haven't slept well since. After what they did to Kiba and Kurenai, I'm glad you killed them," the clone said heatedly. Hinata looked at the blonde-haired boy she had always admired. He had taken abuse for years and never retaliated. He was not someone like Sasuke who was bent on the path of revenge. Had he changed now that he had become a shinobi? Was the boy she loved no longer an entity that existed? Or was he merely saying something to make her feel better? Or did he only get angry when it was other people hurt? Maybe he wouldn't take vengeance for himself but would do it if his precious people were attacked. Her mind whirled with these questions and she realized she had been silent for several moments. "Naruto, can we talk later?" The clone nodded, "Sure, and if I can do anything for you or teammate, just let me know." Hinata thanked him and then hurried after her wounded comrades. The Naruto clone dispelled himself and the real Naruto who had been training his Kenjutsu forms received the memories. Naruto was surrounded by his clones who were working on various chakra control exercises. A few clones had been lobbing various objects at him to cut at random intervals to improve his reaction speed while staying true to his Kenjutsu style. "Damn it. Iwagakure must have sent multiple squads to mess with us," Naruto said out loud. He created a few more clones and had them race over to Sakura, Sasuke and Kakashi. The clone that went to Kakashi burst into a clearing where Kakashi was training. Kakashi had his own clone that was moving at a high rate of speed around trees, dodging to the side, using Shunshin and Kawarimi seemingly at random. Suddenly the air around the clone distorted and seemed to be trying to devour the clone. However, the clone wasn't hit square by whatever was absorbing it and was able to Kawarimi away. The Naruto clone saw the piece of wood disappear. The real Kakashi was breathing quite heavily. His Mangekyo Sharingan had given him the ability to use Kamui. The power of it was frightening, however it had significant drawbacks. For one, it drastically drained his chakra. Kakashi may have been a genius, however he did not naturally have high chakra reserves. With his constant training, his chakra reserves had expanded to be near cage level, but with this technique even that did not allow for too many uses. The second and greater risk from a long-term perspective is that it damaged his Sharingan. While the damage wasn't significant over time, he suspected he would lose all ability to use his Sharingan. This made it highly frustrating for him to train with it since in effect he only had a finite number of uses of it. He did not know if this was truly finite or if spacing out the uses would delay the effects, but testing a hypothesis thoroughly was not an option. Using it against his clone, he realized that S-rank shinobi would not simply die from the attack. However, if they were restrained or even briefly caught unaware, he could hit with the attack and kill them. And even if they weren't restrained or surprised, they could take significant damage, such as losing a limb if they weren't moving at the highest level of speed. Against lesser shinobi, there was little someone could do to stop the attack. Since the attack did not use hand seals, it was very flexible and death could occur before they even knew Kakashi was preparing to strike. Kakashi turned to the clone and deactivated his Sharingan. "What is it?" The clone explained that Team 8 had returned and that it had 2 members severely injured due to Iwa aggression. Kakashi frowned beneath his mask. He had hoped that Iwa was done with their probing. "Thank you for telling me. I'll go see the Hokage." The clone waved and then went poof to let the real Naruto know the message had been delivered. The real Naruto was upset. He wasn't sure which Iwagakure shinobi had attacked Team 8, but if it was the ones that they had let go, he would track down whoever was still alive from that squad. Hinata had killed 2, she would know if they were the same ones they had fought. It was also possible that all 4 had been killed. Maybe the other 2 were killed by the other members of the squad. He wouldn't bother Hinata about it now, but he would ask later on. Naruto was never one to focus on past slights and grievances. The worst he would do to the villagers was pulling pranks on them which were temporarily infuriating but did no lasting harm. Right now hot rage filled his veins and he felt the Kyuubi chakra bubble up inside of him. He clamped down on it hard. Breathing heavily he examined his thoughts. He was angry at Iwa for the attack. He was angry that his comrades were injured. He was angry that Hinata was sad. Would killing Iwa Shinobi make him feel better? If he were to ask Sasuke he would receive a yes. If he were to ask Kakashi he would say that revenge could be cathartic but that it should not get in the way of his goals and dreams. If he were to ask Sakura she would say no, that killing wasn't a good thing. He turned over the thoughts in his head while he continued working on his kenjutsu style. He didn't enjoy killing. Killing someone to protect the village was absolutely something he did with no qualms about it being right. But to kill for no other reason than appease his own selfish psychological need. It wasn't who he wanted to be. If he had to kill Iwa Shinobi he would do so without hesitation but he refused to take joy in it. He would not be like the Kyuubi who reveled in destruction and pain. Kakashi met with the Hokage and Shikaku. Jiraiya didn't like having large group discussions, too many opinions and divergent desires made it a chaotic mess. He trusted Kakashi and Shikaku to provide intelligent analysis. Both of them were geniuses and in raw intellect was superior to him. He felt this was balanced because he often made decisions based on his gut as opposed to knowledge. He had little respect for Homura and Koharu. While they possessed wisdom their way of thinking was too closely aligned to Danzo. Shikaku advised, it seems unlikely Iwagakure will proceed with aggression. Both attempts have met with disaster, while the second attack was more successful they still were driven back with losses. As of yet we have no intelligence suggesting a troop buildup. Kakashi agreed with the assessment, the Tsuchikage isn't always predictable but if he bothered with feeling us out surely he's seen that we are still strong. Kakashi spoke again and said, the problem is if Kiba doesn't survive his injuries the Inuzuka clan will demand a blood price for the attack. The Hokage waved it off. Young Kiba was breathing when he got the hospital, with Tsunade helping out he is in no danger. While he may have long-term injuries he will definitely survive. Shikaku replied, in that case we only need to worry about Iwa and I don't think they will be making any moves after this. Jiraiya pursed his lips in thought, all right let's give it a few more weeks before we begin our operation against Otogakure. It would be a disaster if our best were out of the village and Iwa was going to attack. They were in agreement on that. They moved on to their plans to deal with Orochimaru. Kakashi I've given your proposal more thought and I'm making a change to it. Only those three knew of Kakashi's plan. Otogakure had used most of its forces to hit their village. Orochimaru was sure to have some powerful pawns available however they could be dealt with. Kakashi proposed a strike team made up of Team 7, a 4-man squad of elite Anbu and a mix of Jonin with unique skills to track Orochimaru down if he attempted to flee. The Jonin roster would include Tsume Inuzuka for her nose and strength. It would have Shibi Aburame with his insects to provide similar support. The last two Jonin would be Genma Shiranui who had a variety of skills. The last remaining Jonin would be Shizune who would provide medical support. In terms of Anbu that was where Jiraiya had some changes planned. We will only bring 2 Anbu along. Tenzo, Yamato, and Yugao Azuki will be selected I have replacements in mind for the other 2. Tenzo had access to Mokuton wood release which was both flexible and powerful. Yugao was skilled with Kenjutsu and was a sensor shinobi which would also be useful for tracking down the snake Sannin. Kakashi asked, who are the 2 replacements? Anko Matarashi, I'm afraid she'll never forgive me if I don't include her on this mission. He paused and looked at his 2 trusted advisors. In a whisper he told them, and she's really scary. Kakashi's eye twitched. Based on Jiraiya's behavior Naruto's over-the-top reactions and exclamations weren't behaviors that would prevent him from becoming Hokage. I'll never get him to act like a shinobi if I let him spend more time with Jiraiya, Kakashi thought to himself. His train of thought was derailed when Jiraiya announced that he would be the 4th member of the Anbu squad. Kakashi's response was immediate, you can't do that. You are the Hokage and this is a dangerous mission. Jiraiya laughed, that's precisely why I should be going. If this mission fails we will have lost most of our elite and up-and-coming elite. I can make sure that this succeeds. Between the 2 of us I'm confident Orochimaru can be defeated. If it's just you, even with strong support he could win or inflict casualties and escape. He's one of the Sannin for a reason, Kakashi. Shikaku could see the probability of success skyrocket by including Jiraiya on the mission. However, he was the Hokage, and if something were to happen to him so quickly after being raised to the position, it would make Konoha very vulnerable. This is troublesome. We are putting all of our kunai in one holster. I'd rather go big and lose no kunai. Don't worry, I'm a better gambler than Tsunade. That isn't saying much, Kakashi commented. Hey, who is the Hokage here? Both Shikaku and Kakashi argued against the Hokage risking himself, but in the end he was the Hokage. That meant that Kakashi had to ensure everything went well on the mission. Kakashi mused, so we have 3 weeks to get the teams ready. I'll be drilling my team hard and limiting their missions. I suggest you have Tenzo, Yugao and Anko work together. Have them prepared to use attacks that will slow down even a Sannin. Do the same for the Jonin team. Jiraiya agreed that was sensible and then looked at his 2 advisors. Oh, and don't let Tsunade know I'll be bringing Shizune along. Kakashi thought that this was a terrible idea, but again it wasn't his place to gainsay the Hokage. And he certainly wasn't going to betray the Godime's trust by telling the Slug Princess. Jiraiya wrapped up the meeting by saying, while we are gone, Shikaku will have control. He will be in a henge to appear like me. I'll add some seals in the office to ward away dojutsu and chakra sensing. I'll also inform the village that I'm taking 3 days off to work on my literature and to not disturb me unless it is a dire situation. Eventually it will be discovered, however we'll be traveling fast, so hopefully no word will reach Orochimaru that I'm out of the village. Jiraiya continued, Orochimaru won't be able to resist the temptation of Sasuke. By this time he's already in a new body, so he will be forced to try to take Sasuke alive, which should give a small advantage to Team 7. When you fight Orochimaru, fight as cautiously as you can. As soon as we have confirmation you've engaged, I will summon Fukasaku and Shima. I will take no chances and go into Sage mode prior to my arrival. Kakashi and Shikaku still had reservations, but they had already said their piece. Shikaku began to think about other ways to obscure the Hokage's departure. Kakashi had some training to do with his team. If Orochimaru had in fact used his jutsu to inhibit a new body, he would have his arms back. Kakashi disliked not knowing all of the specifics of how the Snake Sannin's immortality jutsu worked. They only had Jiraiya's conjecture that he drew on from spying on Orochimaru's movements for years and recovered research documentation. Better plan for the worst. Orochimaru will be at full strength and I need to make sure my team is ready to survive that. Sakura was working diligently on Fuinjutsu. It had been a surprise when the Hokage visited her and showed her a seal used on the village shelters. The seal hardened the material around it. Stone would take more damage before breaking. Wood could be made resistant to fire. The shelters were covered in these seals. The seals slowly bled chakra around them, meaning they had to constantly be replenished. Sakura got used to making this seal to help out with those efforts. She also was able to experiment slightly with this type of Fuinjutsu. If the Fuinjutsu failed, there would be no explosion. Sakura delighted in the experimentation aspect of Fuinjutsu. Depending on the material, a different seal could work better, and then it became really complex when you were trying to use the same seal on multiple materials mixed together. This Fuinjutsu had some combat application as well. It could be used on the ground itself, making the immediate area harder to burrow through using Doton. It was a nasty surprise that could counter some of Kabuto's attacks from underneath. Like most Fuinjutsu, it required more time to complete than standard ninjutsu attacks. In Sakura's case, she was confident that her team could protect her. The pink-haired genin spent hours and hours studying Fuinjutsu and practicing seals. She had even skipped visiting Kiba in the hospital to practice more. Kiba was going to make a full recovery and needed his rest. One less body there wasn't going to hurt anything. And Fuinjutsu was just so fascinating. When Jiraiya had told her that they were going to be going on an S-rank mission, she redoubled her efforts to be able to provide offensive support with her Fuinjutsu. While the ground-hardening seal may help out, she longed for something truly offensive. She wasn't having a whole lot of luck. It was known that Uzushiogakure no Sato, village hidden by whirling tides, was feared for their combat application of Fuinjutsu. But almost none of the books provided detail. What exactly were chakra chains? How did Fuinjutsu increase the power of elemental jutsu used? The old texts provided precious few details. It was surprising to her that Jiraiya did not know more. He was a seal master. Shouldn't he know how to use it in combat? The Toad Sage had just chuckled. I don't use a lot of fuinjutsu in combat. I tried to warn you it's not necessarily best used in combat. She remembered how he had scratched his head in mild embarrassment. Of course I told that to the Yondaime and he went on to become known as the Yellow Flash, because of his mastery of fuinjutsu allowed him to perfect Hiraition no Jutsu Flying Thunder God technique. I guess being a seal master doesn't mean you really have mastered the art of seals. Jiraiya's jaw dropped and he responded with faux outrage, Pinky. I know more about seals than anyone alive today. Sakura laughed. If she hadn't gone on the trip to retrieve Tsunade with him she would never have been so carefree with the Hokage. But since she had, she went ahead and responded, well when the village that is full of seal specialists is destroyed I guess they had to lower standards. Jiraiya's mouth worked but no words came out. He crossed his arms and grumped, I have paperwork to do. Next time ask your sensei for help with fuinjutsu. With that he zipped away with a shunshin leaving Sakura smirking. Sakura returned to her fuinjutsu studies even more determined to master the art. So much had been lost. She would be the one to recover it and she would then be an even more integral part of the team. Sakura was confident in her abilities but even with her genjutsu talent and teamwork she was the weakest link on the team. Naruto had amazing chakra reserves allowing him to summon massive battle toads and nearly endless clones. Not to mention his taijutsu was becoming scary. It wasn't the technique that was dangerous but the sheer power behind the attack. And Sasuke-kun with his Sharingan was even more dangerous in close quarters. He also had a healthy dose of jutsu for 2 separate chakra types. But if I can make fuinjutsu battle-worthy I can hold my own. And maybe then Sasuke-kun will see how strong of kunoichi I really am. He wants to restore his clan. He isn't one to let little things like love and feelings impair his goals. He wants revenge first and then to rebuild his clan. He will want a strong kunoichi and that is where I will come in. Then I will teach him about love and kindness and we will be happy for the rest of our lives. Sakura was no longer considered a fangirl because of her outward actions. Internally she still had her dream of being married to her Sasuke-kun. She was just now picking a path that would give her the most chance. Pushing thoughts of the future aside the strong-willed girl continued with her fuinjutsu studies. Sasuke had been informed of the S-rank mission. Kakashi had also told him that he was essentially going to be used as bait. This then led to a discussion on why Orochimaru wanted his body. His brother Itachi had bested Orochimaru using the Sharingan. Plus the Sharingan could be used to copy nearly any jutsu which was a major goal for Orochimaru. Sasuke didn't mind being used as bait. In fact he was looking forward to it. If Itachi could defeat Orochimaru it would be a good test to see how close he was to his brother. Despite his youthful pride he knew that Orochimaru would utterly decimate him in a one-on-one battle. With his team behind him it should be an excellent test. Sasuke had come to a decision. He would not be facing Itachi alone. Not having his team with him would be like going into battle without kunai or without his Sharingan active. An essential part of his shinobi fighting style was teamwork. Sasuke was aware enough to know that Kakashi had done this deliberately but frankly he didn't care. As long as his team was willing to go after Itachi he was happy to be part of it. Sasuke was confident that Sakura and Naruto would gladly stand by him and help get his revenge. He lived for the day he could take Itachi down. He would avenge his village, his clan and his family. He idly wondered if Itachi would beg before he died. While Sasuke was tempted to torture his older brother like he had been tortured it went against the training Kakashi taught. As long as an enemy is alive they are a threat. When the final battle with Itachi took place Sasuke was determined to end it using precision. There would be no mistakes. After the battle ended he could revel in his victory but not a moment before. Sasuke manipulated the Chidori in his hand. With his Sharingan aiding him he had started to manipulate the jutsu. He had increased the strike range by a few inches and in theory he could actually have it extend much further. He'd discuss it with Kakashi during the next training session. Thoughts of ramming a Chidori blade into Itachi's heart spurred him on as he continued his training. The 12 shinobi had made good time and had arrived at the Sound Village with no problems. Unlike other villages Otogaku did not have a robust population. In fact pretty much everyone was either a shinobi or a slave. It was even more depopulated due to the recent invasion of Konoha and the free-for-all to determine who would make the best host for Orochimaru. Jiraiya was behind the Anbu mask and gave out orders. Team 7 was to move forward and advance into the village itself. Coming in from another angle, the Jonin team would also hit the village. They were dubbed Team Sparrow. The Anbu team would follow a bit back from the two lead teams in between them. Their only purpose was to find out where Orochimaru was and take him down. Jiraiya could feel Anko's nervous tension. I may have made a mistake including her. The modification to the seal containing her cursed seal will prevent Orochimaru from sensing her approach, but she is too eager. There was no time to make a change in plans, so he would just have to hope it wasn't going to be a costly mistake. Jiraiya watched Team 7 as they moved out with practiced efficiency. They kept their chakra levels low, soon they would be spotted, but until then they moved with quite a bit of stealth. Naruto had left some clones behind with Jiraiya's squad. If need be, Jiraiya could give orders to the clone who could then dissipate. Shibi had also planted a Kikaichu on everyone, which would allow him to know the direction of all members of each squad. The final communication piece was shortwave radios in earpieces that each of the strike team members had. A voice crackled on the line. It was Kakashi. Hostiles have spotted us, 3 Chunin-level threats, we'll take them down. Jiraiya forced himself not to come rushing in. At this point there was no danger, but still it went against the grain to simply wait while others put their lives on the line. My time will come soon enough, Jiraiya thought to himself. Break ****. With the team being spotted and the alarm being raised, there was no point in Kakashi's squad to continue going forward with stealth. Naruto created 50 clones and had them henge into various leaf Chunin. They then charged forward with a variety of weapons in hand, kunai, katanas and other assorted weaponry. The 3 Chunin were massacred. Kakashi drove forward at top speed and jammed a kunai through the heart of one before dashing off and finishing the second one with a kunai through the neck. Sasuke finished the third in a sharp but very brief taijutsu duel that ended with Sasuke snap-kicking the enemy shinobi in the ribs, breaking them and driving a shard of bone into her lung. Sasuke then easily finished the kunoiki off with a kunai through her heart. Sakura conserved her chakra. It would be much harder soon. Kakashi reported through his headset, threats neutralized. There is very little resistance to the clones. No sign of Orochimaru or Kabuto. Unlike other villages, Otogakure was partially underground. This is where Orochimaru housed his experiments and completed his research. Team 7 breached the entrance. Naruto sent several clones in first to see what threats awaited. They triggered the first set of traps, which sent explosions and shrapnel down the tunnel. The real Team 7 was far enough away that it was of no concern. Naruto again used the cage bunshin to scout ahead. There were many twists and rooms in the sterile corridors. The place at times seemed abandoned. One Naruto clone heard heavy footsteps around the corner and skidded to a halt. Around the corner a massive Doki, Rage Ogre, swung its club aiming for the Naruto clone. The clone, utilizing its superior speed, dodged the club, drew its katana and sliced its belly open. Not yet defeated, the creature snarled with pain and slammed its weapon down at his nimble opponent. The Naruto clone far outmatched the Doki in speed. It was child's play to avoid the attacks. The clone carved the Doki up in the next 10 seconds and then finished it with a partial decapitation in the neck. The clone heard clapping in the distance. Pretty impressive for trash, now try handling 2 at once. Tayuya was a member of the Sound 4 and was quite irritated at the thought that someone would dare attack Orochimaru's base. One Doki burst through the wall, surprising the clone and nearly connected with its mass. The last creature charged down the hall from in front of Tayuya with bone claws on its arms. The Naruto clone had its work cut out for him. Tayuya was impressed by the boy's speed and quickly activated her curse seal to lend more strength. She could see despite facing a 2-on-1, the katana-wielding Konoha shinobi was too fast to get hit by their attacks. She began to use her genjutsu, but as soon as she began, a second shinobi with a Konoha headband with 2 kunai in his fists leapt on the bandaged Doki and buried the kunai into the neck. The creature gave out a howl of pain and crashed backwards. This left the first threat time to race past the Doki it was engaged in and attack Tayuya directly. Tayuya cursed. Even with her cursed seal mode, she was not great at taijutsu and her opponent was fast. She activated her curse seal again, allowing her to evolve to the second stage. Horns grew from her head and her strength was greatly enhanced. She tried to gain distance from her opponent to use her flute, but he gave her no opportunity. Most shinobi would have wanted to boast about their accomplishment after killing her summon, but this one stayed silent and just kept attacking. Frustration mounting, Tayuya put her flute away so she could use Kawarimi with a nearby chair. The chair was splintered from the downward strike. Tayuya swallowed her pride and raced down the hall, trying to put distance between her and the Kenjutsu speed freak. Her more powerful legs in the level 2 curse form giving her incredible speed. A third Konoha shinobi met her down the hall with a futon, Daytopper, wind release, great breakthrough. If she hadn't been in her curse form she would have been blown away. However, even with her greatly enhanced strength the attack affected her. It stopped her forward momentum, and to her horror her other opponent was already on her. The katana pierced her as she was turning. The kill stroke went through her heart. The Naruto clone then cleanly decapitated her. Tayuya, the self-proclaimed most powerful of the Sound Four, never even realized she had been defeated by clones instead of 3 different Konoha shinobi. Shibi and his team had breached the base as well. He was level-headed and calm as his squad encountered their opponents. Each of their enemies had transformations they could undergo. One turned into a spider-like creature and another simply grew larger and more muscular. The last threat was a boastful individual by the name of Sakan, was actually 2 people in one body. Tsume was quite formidable in the battle, taking on the large one single-handedly. Even with the heavy-set Oto shinobi activating his curse seal, he could not defeat the experienced Inuzuka clan leader. She fought with a ferocity that was part due to her relationship with her companion and part due to her rage as a mother of a wounded child. While Orochimaru hadn't directly assaulted Kiba, his near-death was indirectly related. If Konoha had never been invaded, Iwa would not have probed for weakness. Tsume and her companion literally ripped into Jirobo, and the sounds of tearing flesh and his screams echoed through the chamber. Sakan attempted to inhabit Shibi's body but had failed to realize it was as bug clone. That attempted fail, and his chakra was soon being drained by the Kikaichu. Shizune spat poisoned senbon at him, striking him and filling him with a poison that even Orochimaru had not encountered. Weakened by the poison and the chakra-draining bugs, he soon succumbed. The spider-like opponent faced Genma and they battled with projectiles. The arrows he attempted to fire always had to be hastily fired because Genma also rained senbon down on him with tremendous striking power. In fact, the force was strong enough that the Jonin was he even able to partially deflect an arrow which incensed Kidomaru. The Oto Nin saw Jirobo ripped apart and Sakan being drained of chakra. He spat webbing to slow down pursuit and turned tail to run. Tsume went to give chase after finishing her massacre, but Shibi called out to halt. "Let my clone go first, there may be traps or other enemies." Tsume growled but obeyed the squad leader. She didn't like having to follow orders, it went against her alpha perspective. However, Jiraiya had made it clear Shibi was in charge of the squad, and if she didn't like it then she could stay in Konoha. Shibi spoke over the frequency, 2 low Jonin level threats neutralized, 1 fleeing. No sign of Orochimaru. Orochimaru was surprised that his hidden village was being attacked. He had assumed Konoha would still be licking their wounds from the invasion. Kabuto had informed him of the attack, and then shortly afterward he felt Tayuya die. The curse mark allowed him some knowledge of the physical state of the bearers of his mark as long as they were within a few miles of him. It seems they are serious about this attack. What do you have for me, Kabuto? Kabuto informed him, Team 7 being led by Kakashi has hit our base on the eastern side. Orochimaru looked up and licked his lips with his too long tongue. Is Sasuke with them? Kabuto nodded, it appears so, though it could be a clone. I believe all of Team 7 is together. Kikuku, they have brought me a present, how nice of them. Lord Orochimaru, there are more attackers. Another squad of Jonin-level attackers has hit our northern entrance. I've dispatched the remaining Sound 4 to deal with them. Orochimaru nodded and Kabuto continued, a squad of Anbu appears to be observing and have yet to enter the base. Orochimaru tasted the air with his tongue. I'll keep the Anbu squad busy with a few summons. Wake up Kimimaro and have him reinforce the northern side. Kabuto saw Orochimaru perform the summoning jutsu and sent a few moderately sized serpents out of the base toward the Anbu squad. Orochimaru grinned, Kakashi is a fool if he thinks he's improved enough to take me on. Come with me, Kabuto, you handle the brats while I deal with their sensei. Keep Sasuke alive and kill the rest. Kabuto pushed his glasses up and smiled. He was not going to be caught unawares again. He was going to get revenge on those cocky rookies and show them why he was Orochimaru's right hand. Break Kakashi saw Orochimaru with his Sharingan behind the stone wall of a larger, more open section of the base. It wasn't large enough to fit a truly massive summon like Gamabunta, but it would fit summons who were a good sized larger than a human. The area was not a man-made structure but a natural part of the underground region that connected two parts of Orochimaru's base. Naruto had his clones fan out in front. Orochimaru laughed. In one hand he casually held a blade. On his left side was Kabuto. Kakashi saw another Orochimaru blend in with the wall itself around 30 feet behind the Orochimaru mud clone. Kakashi flared his chakra, raising his killing intent. This signaled Jiraiya that Orochimaru had been spotted. If all went to plan, Jiraiya would then begin summoning Ma and Pa and entire Sage mode. Normally Kakashi favored quick battles that began and ended with brutal efficiency, however in this case he would play the part of a stereotypical shinobi who talked and boasted before fighting. Kakuku, was that supposed to impress me, Kakashi? Kakashi responded, just a taste of what's to come, Orochimaru. I am the strongest shinobi in Konoha. And yet every time I'm mentioned as the strongest, the caveat is always that I am the strongest shinobi outside of the Sannin. After today everyone will know I am above the Sannin and truly the greatest shinobi since my sensei. You think you are on my level, Kakashi? You deluded fool, I think I'll keep you alive to see two of your students brutally killed and then I'll take Sasuke for myself. Jiraiya must be getting senile if he thought you and your students could challenge me. You're old, Orochimaru, I'm in my prime. The reason I'll win is the same reason you beat the Sandaime, age. The Orochimaru mud clone twirled the blade in his hand. Are you forgetting that I have a fresh body, Kakashi? It's time you learn to respect your betters. Everything seemed to happen at once. The clone opened its mouth and dozens of snakes slithered out at a rapid pace, going for whoever was closest. The Naruto clones began slashing at him immediately. Kabuto hurled dozens of scalpels coated with poison at the genin of Team 7. The Orochimaru mud clone danced forward with his blade aiming for Kakashi. Kakashi stepped backward, avoiding the blow. Orochimaru stalked after him as Kakashi danced away from the blade. Meanwhile a pair of Naruto clones had shouted out, Futon, Repusho, Wind Release, Gale Palm, and had batted away Kabuto's projectiles. Kabuto called out, so you like clones, Naruto? Two can play at that game. Kabuto made his own cage bunch and used it to burrow beneath the ground. The Naruto clones finished dicing the snakes. The cloned Kabuto erupted from the ground and immediately attempted to strike at Sakura. This time it was the real Sakura, however she was expecting the attack and was able to dodge away from the Kabuto clone. Sasuke lashed out with a kick that the clone didn't even attempt to block. Sasuke then watched in shock as the clones exploded. He was sent careening backwards, singed on his arms and face. The real Kabuto laughed, turnabout is fair play, isn't it? The Naruto clones dashed forward, throwing kunai ahead of them as they descended on Kabuto. Kabuto substituted with one of the few remaining live snakes and rammed a chakra scalpel into the back of a Naruto clone, dissipating it. Sakura immediately struck with her genjutsu, shouting, Raiten, Mahi, lighting release, paralysis. Kabuto flinched for a fraction of a second before dispelling the genjutsu. Kabuto moved with full speed and strength, darting for Sakura. Sakura was not his real target, it was a feint, and he had then dashed at Sasuke, who was recovering from the blast. Two Naruto clones interposed themselves, each with a katana aimed for him. He split between them, tossed a poisonous smoke bomb behind him. The smoke bomb wasn't an inhaled gas, it was acidic vapor that dissolved the clones on contact. Sasuke watched the attack coming with his Sharingan and readied his Chidori. Kabuto laughed as he completed the Kawarimi again without using any hand signs. The Chidori struck a piece of debris instead of its intended target. I wonder how many times you can use that attack before you get exhausted, Uchiha. Sasuke ground his teeth in frustration. Unlike the last battle, it was Kabuto who was playing them like a harp. Meanwhile Kakashi was warily keeping an eye on the real Orochimaru and how his students were doing. He had yet to seriously engage and continued to simply back away from the clone. It was easier to play defense than to attack, and the clone didn't seem in any hurry. My Kakashi, this is quite sad. All your brave talk and all you are doing is running away, trying to analyze my movements with your precious Sharingan. Kakashi pretended to have the words affect him and he lashed forward with a kunai. The mud clone swung his blade and Kakashi ducked underneath and went to slam his kunai into the clone's chest. The Orochimaru clone grabbed Kakashi's arm and shoved him away. With some distance between them, the clone lifted his left hand and used Senjutsu, striking shadow snakes. Snakes erupted from his arm and attempted to latch onto Kakashi. The elite Jonin saw them coming with his Sharingan and easily cut them to pieces before they could pierce his flesh. The mud clone chuckled, "Are you ready to get serious, Kakashi? At least try to making this amusing for me." Kakashi flipped the kunai in his hand and threw it at the mud clone, who easily deflected it. Kakashi began circling the Orochimaru mud clone, tossing kunai at it. Each kunai was deflected with barely a twitch of the wrist. Kakashi, what are you planning? Why are you trying to stall? Do you think you need the help of the other squad infiltrating my base? I thought you were going to prove yourself superior to the Sannin. The three genin had gone on the offense against Kabuto. The Naruto clones pressed in closer against Kabuto, who showcased his medical nin reflexes and dodged the attacks. Sakura attempted another genjutsu that failed. Since then she started working on her fuinjutsu seals on the earth. Kabuto was mildly curious as to what she was doing, but the clones kept pressing him and pushed him away from her. With so many clones in close proximity, Kabuto threw a kunai wrapped with multiple explosive seals in the middle of them. They immediately sprang away, but the blast dissipated several of them. Sasuke wasn't finished with his opponent, however. He signaled Naruto for the attack they had planned. The clones backed away and began throwing kunai at Kabuto while Sasuke slowly prowled forward. Kabuto smirked and brought his chakra scalpels to bear against the young Sharingan user. Sasuke charged forward and then abruptly halted. Three Naruto clones had walked up the wall and now stood on the ceiling and called out in unison, "Futon, Daytopper, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough." The force blasted Kabuto from above toward the ground. Kabuto instantly used Doton, Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu, Earth Style, Headhunter Jutsu, to disappear into the rock. At that same moment, Sakura placed the Fuinjutsu seal on the ground, hardening the rock. Just prior to that moment, the real Naruto had summoned Gamma in full toad armor. The 9-foot-tall toad knew what expected of it and leapt into position. Kabuto had excellent chakra control and a large chakra reserve, so he was able to pierce back through the rock fairly easily. However, the jutsu was supposed to be stealthy. The Fuinjutsu made it loud and obvious where Kabuto would come out. Sasuke was already flipping through hand seals and finished Raiten, Shichu Shibari, lighting release, 4-pillar bind, right where Kabuto burst through the floor. The lighting trapped him. It wouldn't hold someone of his skill long, but it was long enough for Kakashi to activate Kamui on Kabuto. The Snake Sannin felt the pressure build up behind Kakashi's eye and moved. The real Orochimaru used the body flicker technique to race toward Kabuto. Orochimaru was not sentimental about his servant, but he did not want to lose such a strong subordinate. At the same time, the mud clone lashed out at the distracted Kakashi with its blade. Gamma leapt in front of Kakashi and blocked the blade with his armored forearm. The real Orochimaru grabbed Kabuto by the arm right as Kakashi's Kamui began to warp the air around Kabuto. Orochimaru managed to arrive in time to save Kabuto's life, but not in enough time to save his entire right leg from being ripped off of him. Orochimaru threw Kabuto backwards as Naruto clones charged forward, blades slashing down. Orochimaru hissed, proceeded to annihilate the attacking clones with his superior strength and speed. Kabuto was in tremendous pain, but he was able to begin staunching the wound with his medical jutsu. The spy was shaken to the core. He doubted he had ever been as close to death as he had been there. A tenth of a second later and he would have lost his leg and lower abdomen, which would have killed him for sure. Kakashi was breathing heavily after using his Mangekyo Sharingan. The real Orochimaru had just finished annihilating a dozen Naruto clones. Orochimaru charged Kakashi, now fully realizing just how dangerous of an opponent he really was. The mud clone also charged forward, but Gamma and more Naruto clones were keeping it away from the fight. The mud clone had limited amounts of chakra and would soon dissipate if it actually tried to use a strong ninjutsu. The real Orochimaru lashed out with the real Kusanagi held in his mouth while his hands blurred. Orochimaru stabbed out with the blade just as he finished his Doton, Doryuso, Earth Release, Earth Flow spears. Unlike the normal version that targeted a small area, this enhanced jutsu filled the entire cavern with spears. Clones popped left and right, and Gamma only avoided death by his armor preventing the spears from piercing. Sakura barely managed to avoid injury as she dodged the floor, turning into spikes. Her eyes widened at the immense power Orochimaru had used to completely shatter her Fuinjutsu and increase the normal size of the Doton Jutsu. The real Naruto took an earth spear the thigh and clutched it in pain. Sasuke with the aid of his Sharingan avoided harm without too much difficulty, as did Kakashi. Kakashi also had to worry about the deadly blade racing to rip him in two. Leaping over the blade, Kakashi began his own string of hand seals and completed Doton, Doru Tiger, Earth Release, Earth Flow River to turn some of the spike into a wave of earthy mud that threatened to engulf Orochimaru. The Sannin just sneered and used his superior chakra control to shove off of the muddy river and attack Kakashi again. Naruto broke off the rock spear in his leg and pulled it out. He hastily wrapped the bloody wound in bandages. He forced himself to stand and summon another batch of clones, half of which charged at the very wounded Kabuto. The Orochimaru mud clone backed away from Gamma and moved to protect Kabuto. A half-dozen Naruto clones sucked in air and used Futon, Shinkugyoku wind-release vacuum bullets, all aimed at Kabuto. The mud clone used the last of its chakra to create an earth wall in front of the wounded servant and then collapsed in a pile of mud, no longer able to maintain its form. Orochimaru summoned more snakes out of his hands at Kakashi, who was hard-pressed to deal with the sword and the snakes. Kakashi used the Sharingan to its fullest, managing to find safety from snakebite and blade strikes by the thinnest of margins. Kakashi made his own mud clone to give him a moment's respite so he could charge up his Reikiri. Orochimaru warily eyed the dense lighting chakra before dispatching the Kakashi mud clone. For a moment Orochimaru felt a genjutsu take hold, but he forced his chakra to dispel it without even taking a moment to gather it. In that briefest of moments Kakashi struck out, Orochimaru dodged away from the lightning cutter and lashed out with his legendary sword. The snake Sannin saw Sasuke charge in with his Chidori at the same time as he made his attack. Kakashi dodged the sword and then did a leg sweep at the precise moment the Chidori was about to slice into Orochimaru. However, the missing nin caught Sasuke's wrist with the Chidori inches from his chest and simple snapped it. Sasuke gave a cry of pain. Orochimaru threw the wounded boy away as he jumped to avoid Kakashi's sweep. A hail of kunai from the Naruto clones screamed toward Kakashi's opponent. More snakes swarmed out of Orochimaru's sleeves, intercepting the kunai and landing on the floor, racing towards the clones hoping to bite them. Meanwhile Kabuto had healed his stumped leg. He was no longer in danger of bleeding to death. Low on stamina, Kabuto created a shadow clone to take his place and then hobbled to one leg and pushed chakra into his one foot to shove himself away from the battle. The earth wall wasn't going to last long. Orochimaru sensed his subordinate fleeing to safety. He then also felt the deaths of two more of his Sound 4. This has proven a costly attack. I'm going to make Kakashi suffer for this, he angrily thought. Kakashi gave Orochimaru an eye smile. Now it's time for the real fight, traitor. Those words heralded Jiraiya in full senjutsu mode bursting onto the scene. The two-toed sages sat on his shoulders and his bulbous features were solemn. Orochimaru was shocked to see his former teammate here. It was rare for a Hokage to leave the village outside of a shinobi world war. The snake Sannin laughed. Kakuku, so you've come to kill me, Jiraiya. You have never been my equal, and today I get the kill my second Hokage just months after I killed the first. Shibi cautiously led his team forward deeper into the base. His bug clone led the way, keeping a wary watch for any traps or ambushes. Soom sniffed and said, "Someone is coming. It's an odd scent, but it smells like sickness and decay." Shibi signaled his team to prepare an ambush. If the enemy was coming out after them, it played in their favor. The four Jonin were reasonably confident that they could handle anything here. They had sensed the killing intent unleashed and knew that Kakashi's team was facing Orochimaru and that Jiraiya was swiftly moving out to help out. Genma laid down some explosive tags and covered them with Magen, Kokoni Arazu no Jutsu, demonic illusion, false surroundings technique. Shizune readied another pair of poisoned senbon and Shibi tensed ready to bring his insects down on the threat that approached them. Soom just growled and bared her teeth. After the trap went off and the others threw their projectiles, she was going to rip whatever was left of their opponent to pieces. Break Anko ignored Tenzo's order to slow down. Jiraiya had raced toward Orochimaru's position after activating Sage Mode. Within that mode, Anko could not possibly hope to keep up, and she desperately wanted to be there when Orochimaru was killed. So far her contribution to the battle had been to take down a simple giant snake that had assaulted the group. The other snake had been dealt with by Tenzo's Mokuton wood release. The snake had been wrapped in solid trunks of wood and had been crushed to death. Anko was determined to do more than kill a simple snake summon. Yugao and Tenzo watched Anko push more and more chakra into her feet to race across the ground. Yugao and Tenzo did not follow at that pace. Tenzo turned to his companion, "We will want to preserve our chakra. We will do no good arriving exhausted." Yugao nodded and kept an even pace as they watched Anko's form slowly grow smaller. Jiraiya was filled with natural energy. That energy greatly enhanced his strength, toughness, speed and jutsu. His natural energy-infused chakra ripped apart the stone ground as he raced at full throttle toward Orochimaru. The snake Sannin was caught off guard at the sheer speed. Jiraiya lashed out with a thunderous kick when he was in range. Orochimaru blocked with his arm and felt the bone crack. He was shoved off his feet and slammed into the wall. He instantly performed a Kawarimi and avoided the swarm of needles that Jiraiya had shot from his head with his Hari Jigoku needle hell. Orochimaru glanced at the stone wall he had rammed into. All of the needles that had been created formed Jiraiya's hair had pierced the wall completely through. Jiraiya immediately found his opponent and dashed forward. Orochimaru used his blade to strike at his former teammate, who easily caught the blade in his palms and wrenched it down and followed it up with a senjutsu-fueled kick. The kick came in far faster and stronger than Orochimaru expected and he felt ribs break. Orochimaru let go of his sword and rolled with the kick and spat out a hastily formed Kaiten, Karyudan, Fire Dragon Bullet. However, this was countered by Fukasaku using Suten, Mizudepo Water Release, Water Gun. The water slammed into the fire and since it had elemental superiority the attack was defeated. Through the steam Jiraiya came charging in. Orochimaru ducked the blow and dodged to the side and attempted to lash out with his own knife hand strike. Jiraiya caught the blow with one hand and held it in place as he used his other to punch Orochimaru in the sternum, cracking it. Not yet done, Jiraiya pulled his fist back again and punched toward his face. Orochimaru used his free hand to deflect the blow and opened his mouth, which let a viper out to strike at Jiraiya's face. Jiraiya released Orochimaru and caught the viper in his hand and crushed it before it could strike. Orochimaru leapt backward. How is this possible? I have always been his superior in taijutsu. Orochimaru realized it must have been the senjutsu that was tipping the balance. Orochimaru knew he wasn't going to be able to face him in taijutsu and win. His thoughts were interrupted as Kakashi struck out while he was still in mid-air. Kakashi lashed out with his kunai headed for the snake Sannin's heart. Orochimaru, mid-air broken sternum and all, caught Kakashi's hand as he was stabbing and then stiffened his fingers and struck at Kakashi's throat. The stiffened fingers met little resistance as it wasn't the real Kakashi. Instead it was a Raiten Cage Bunshin lighting release, shadow clone. The clone burst into electricity, badly electrocuting Orochimaru. Kunai raced up from the Naruto clones towards Orochimaru, several sticking into him. Orochimaru landed in a heap, bursting from his skin. A new Orochimaru leapt up, completely unharmed. Normally Orochimaru liked to regurgitate his new body as a way of cowing his opponents, but against his current set of enemies that was too dangerous. The downside of his technique is that it drained a great deal of chakra. Despite his arrogance, Orochimaru realized that he was in actual danger here. He considered his options. Taijutsu had already been ruled out. Ninjutsu was another field. Orochimaru had always been stronger than Jiraiya in, however there were two Toad sages with him and one of them had already demonstrated a high degree of speed and power with his ninjutsu. Not to mention Kakashi was still there and he had an extensive library of ninjutsu that he could call on to use and counter. Genjutsu was out against a Sharingan foe and with two Toad sages in close contact with Jiraiya he would not succumb to that either. Summons weren't going to make a difference. Manda couldn't be summoned in this environment. While Manda could break through rock and earth easily enough, it was impossible to summon something larger than the space it could fit in. And even if he did summon Manda, his opponents had the Jinchuriki, who had demonstrated his ability in summoning the great battle toads of Mount Myoboku. Orochimaru had not had time to prepare corpses for Kuchio's Edo Tensei summoning, impure world reincarnation. It took the genius only a second to quickly filter through options that weren't going to work. The last option was risky, but Orochimaru refused to turn tail and run. Not when he had a transformation technique which would allow him to kill all of the foes arrayed against him. It's absurd that I have to resort to this, but so be it. Kimimaro walked into the trap Team Sparrow had laid for him. The genjutsu-covered explosive tags exploded beneath his feet, however, due to his Kekkei Genkai bone plates immediately shielded him, and the only harm he suffered was a brief stumble. Senbon screamed at him. Some were shot with tremendous force while others were laced with poison. Bones erupted underneath Kimimuro's skin, deflecting the dangerous needles. Bugs that had been crawling on the ceiling descended down on top of Kimimuro. That was a danger, so the one-time leader of Orochimaru's bodyguards dashed forward ready to take down the intruders before his chakra was devoured. He activated the first level of his cursed seal at the same time. Tsume was waiting to pounce and did so with her normal ferocity. This proved to be the worst move she could possibly make. Kimimuro saw Tsume coming and didn't even try to block. He just let her come in close and then let his bones burst out from him. If she hadn't been only 8 inches away, she could have dodged. After all, she was a skilled jonin. But with her being less than a foot away from protruding bone spikes, there was simply no time to do anything. One bone pierced her arm, another 2 went through her belly and chest. Those wouldn't have been fatal if Shizune could have reached her in time. The bone spike that went through her throat, however, would have ended her life even if Shizune had been right at her side. The Jonin squad looked on in shock at the sudden destruction of their taijutsu specialist. Tsume's companion Kuromaru let out a howl of despair as it charged in and met a similar fate. Genma cursed and backed down the hallway. Shibi ran across the top of the ceiling and jumped down behind Kimimuro. Kimimuro lashed out with bones extending from his body, but Shibi dodged backwards and away from the dangerous enemy. Genma didn't want to use any kaiten against the opponent for fear of burning the insects that Shibi had eating their opponent's chakra. He pulled out a smoke bomb and tossed it down the hall, hopefully trying to disorient his opponent. Kimimuro eventually caught up to Shibi and impaled him with his bones, however, instead of another dead Konoha shinobi, the body dissipated into another swarm. The insects continued to work on him and he didn't have anything that could shake them. Luckily for him, the curse seal gave him a large amount of chakra to work with. Kimimuro raced back down the hall and after the Aburame. Genma had lashed 2 kunai to the wall and had ninja wire strung between them. With the smoke in the air, Kimimuro did not see the wire and tripped over it. He rolled gracefully and kept moving down the hall, ignoring the explosive tags going off around him that were easily deflected by his bone plates that sprang up in his defense. Shizune used Dokugiri poison mist on the advancing Kimimuro. Shizune had worked with Shibi to determine a poisonous mixture that would not hurt his Kikaichu. Kimimuro had no such protection. He held his breath as best he could but had taken the slightest whiff and now was coughing badly. He sank to his knees. Already ill, this exacerbated his condition. With pure willpower he stood up and shouted, "I will not fail, Lord Orochimaru." Catching sight of the 3 attackers, he used his most devastating ability. Sawarabi no Mai dance of the seedling fern caused Orochimaru's base to rumble. Beneath the 3 Jonin's feet, hundreds of sharp bones of various sizes exploded up from the ground. Shizune had been trained as a medical nin, so she had the best reflexes and she leapt away, bouncing from previously risen bones to avoid the new bones rising up from the ground. Shibi was not so lucky and had a bone spike driven through his arm. Another scraped his side painfully but not dangerously so. Genma had tried to dodge but ended up being impaled in the belly. Genma grabbed the massive jutting bone with his hand so he would not slide down and tear open his body further. He coughed blood and felt his body tremble with weakness. Shizune, being the last uninjured attacker, was the natural target for the last Kaguya. He rose up out of a bone shard with a drill-like bone structure for a right arm and swiped it at Tsunede's apprentice. Shizune was no slouch at taijutsu and managed to dodge the attack and respond with more senbon aimed for the eyes. The senbon were not dangerous, but as bone instinctually sought to protect Kimimuro, it would temporarily blind him. Shizune used that time to create distance between her and her opponent. Kimimuro felt agony course through his body as he was about to continue the attack. Shizune watched with wide eyes how the seemingly invincible opponent suddenly dropped dead in front of her. Wary in case of a trap, she created a shadow clone to check for signs of life. Shibi, who was nearby, informed her that his allies could no longer detect life either. With confirmation of no immediate danger, Shizune raced to Genma. He was hurt badly and would need her medical jutsu. *break**** Naruto had watched Jiraiya in awe. His speed and strength were on a level that he had never seen before. Orochimaru, the man that had killed the 3rd Hokage, had been driven back in seconds. Naruto snapped out his slack-jawed to send some more clones to finally get past the wall of earth and get at Kabuto to finish him off. Kabuto threw kunai at the advancing clones, but with one leg and limited chakra he was quickly dispatched with a katana through the chest, which revealed that it was simply a shadow clone. One clone dispelled to let the real Naruto know that Kabuto had escaped deeper into Otogaku. Naruto saw Sasuke's broken wrist and knew he wouldn't be too much help. Sakura was still doing all right, so he told her quickly, "Sakura, I can't move my leg well and the clones I make will be under the same restriction, however we need to finish off Kabuto. Take Gamma and my clones and finish him off. I'll direct assistance from the Anbu squad when they arrive." Sakura signaled her agreement and went further down the hall as Naruto saw the Raiten clone electrocute Orochimaru. Naruto and clones threw dozens of kunai at the falling S-rank nin. He was surprised that they actually struck. Naruto figured it was too good to be true and wasn't surprised when Orochimaru burst out of his old skin. Well, he wasn't surprised that Orochimaru hadn't died, but he was surprised by the gross way he survived. Some sort of liquid was still on him, clinging to his form. Gross, Naruto thought. Naruto had his clones back away. He didn't want to interfere with Jiraiya-sensei or Kakashi-sensei as they dealt with a dangerous opponent. He would only strike when an opening was obvious. Naruto heard Orochimaru laugh. "Kikuku, I can't believe you are making me use this Jiraiya Baka." Orochimaru put his hands together and exploded in size. His features rapidly became snake-like as his mass swelled. The area was large enough from end to end to accommodate the increased mass, however the ceiling was not. That proved no barrier, however, as Orochimaru's snake form began to grow multiple heads and multiple tails. The heads smashed through stone ceiling with contemptuous ease. A distant crash and shaking acted as a counterpoint to Orochimaru's giant transformation that was collapsing the roof above everyone's heads. Falling rock and debris were easy enough for Kakashi, Jiraiya and Sasuke to dodge, however Naruto had a wounded leg. Naruto went with a risky impromptu strategy and made a Rasengan in his hand. He hefted it above his head, pointing at the ceiling and the falling debris. He then crouched and made his body as small as possible. Any falling debris, even massive chunks of rock, would first hit the destructive power of the Rasengan and be blasted apart. It worked for the first stone, but then the swirling energy lost cohesion and power. A stone clipped his shoulder with bone-jarring force and Naruto stifled a cry of pain. Kakashi saw this happening with his Sharingan and completed a Kawarimi with debris near Naruto and grabbed the Jinchuriki and continued to evade the falling rocks. When the last of the falling rocks had stopped, Naruto was let go and looked up at the truly enormous 8-headed and 8-tailed snake. Open sky reigned above them now. Naruto had fought Manda before, the world's largest serpent. But this monstrosity was even larger than Manda. Naruto immediately began planning for some way to defeat it. He knew Jiraiya and Kakashi were doing the same. Naruto grabbed for his chakra kunais and began tying explosive tags to them. While it hadn't defeated Manda, it had distracted it and caused the snake a great deal of pain. Maybe it would do the same against Orochimaru. Jiraiya wasted no time and completed a massive collaborative technique with the two-toed sages. Pa used wind, Jiraiya spat oil, and Ma provided the fire. The roaring, burning, oily explosion slammed into 8-headed serpent. The 8 heads roared with pain and one lashed down to strike at Jiraiya. The toad sage dodged aside at the last moment. The massive mouth bit into the earth 10 feet down. More heads lashed out and Jiraiya was hard-pressed to dodge them all, even in sage mode. Despite the incredible mass of each of the heads and necks, they moved with astonishing swiftness. Even more worrisome for Naruto was the tremendous burning damage that the Hokage had inflicted was actually being regenerated by the monstrous hydra. Kami, what's it going to take to kill this thing? Naruto did his part by throwing 2 of his special chakra kunai at the creature. They both slammed into the bulk of the beast and then exploded inside. However, Orochimaru's form didn't even seem to feel it. The sword of Kusanagi flew towards one of the mouths, who had opened up to reveal Orochimaru standing inside it. Orochimaru caught the blade and laughed. "Behold my ultimate jutsu, Yamata no Jutsu, 8 branches technique." Naruto looked to Kakashi for orders but was unable to locate his sensei. Naruto knew Kakashi wouldn't have run. He was probably hiding in order to strike suddenly at Orochimaru. It did unnerve the young Jinchuriki. This was not a situation that had been planned for. Well, when in doubt, make clones, Naruto thought to himself and hastily made 40 clones who were not as strong as normal due to having the same limited movement in their punctured leg as he did. Naruto glanced at Sasuke, who was also trying to figure out how he could help. It wasn't often that the genin of Team 7 felt helpless, but this was one of those times. Naruto hoped Jiraiya and Kakashi had a plan to deal with the now 8-headed snake. Break Anko heard the sound of falling debris. She was just outside of the danger zone. The section of the underground portion of the village shook for a few moments, but it finally stopped. A Naruto clone held up his hand and said, Anko-san. Sakura-chan is chasing down Kabuto and could use your help, please follow me. Anko shook her head, sorry Gaki, but I'm after Orochimaru. The clone grimaced, are you serious? My teammate is trying to hunt down Orochimaru's right-hand man and you want to get in Kakashi-sensei and the Hokage's way. Anko scowled at the clone. She needed to help against Orochimaru, not because the mission demanded it but for her own personal satisfaction. Sorry kid, but nothing is standing in my way, Tenzo and Yugao will be here soon. Tell them. The clone was appalled at Anko's actions but couldn't do much as Anko raced past toward the sounds of the base's destruction. Selfish bitch, the clone muttered. Break Sakura had several Naruto clones around her as well as the toad summon Gamma. Gamma was bruised badly from the earth spears that had smashed into his armor but still had chakra to keep going. They moved swiftly and were hot on Kabuto's heels. They were far enough into the base that they were outside of the massive destruction caused by Orochimaru's gigantic hydra form. Sakura shivered. She didn't know what was going on in the battle with the 3S-class shinobi, but she hoped Naruto and Sasuke-kun would be alright. For now she had to focus on catching up to Kabuto. The medical nin felt someone following him and cursed. He was really in no position to fight. But there was no way he was going to outrun his opponents with only one leg. He swallowed a soldier pill to replenish his chakra and stamina and prepared to ambush his pursuers. The clones were in front and the first one saw the ninja wire at head height. Drawing a katana, it cut the wire and set off the hidden explosive tags. The first 2 clones went pop, leaving 6 clones left. Sakura came after with 2 clones at her side and Kabuto tossed a barrage of kunai at them. The first clone used Futon, Repusho, Wind Release, Gale Palm, to blow away the projectiles. Kabuto used Shunshin with only one leg to get in close to slice at Sakura with a chakra blade. Sakura dodged to the left and let the clones strike at Kabuto. Kabuto, even with one leg, was quite good at taijutsu. One clone popped, bringing the total down to 5. Gamma grasped Kabuto's one good leg with his tongue and bashed him against the wall. The Kabuto clone turned into smoke, revealing it to only have been a cage bunshin. The real Kabuto narrowed his eyes at the toad summon. He was a dangerous opponent. Despite being of much smaller proportion to the great battle toads, he had strength and speed equal to a jonin. Sakura sensed Kabuto in the shadows and immediately pointed him out to her allies. Kabuto saw a trio of Naruto clones racing forward. He balanced on one leg and waited for them to come at him. Katana cuts raced toward him. He ducked under one. Pivoting on one foot was hard, but Kabuto made it look graceful as he dodged another. The last one he didn't bother dodging. Instead he spat a senbon from his mouth at point-blank range. The clone's katana went up in smoke just like the rest of it inches before the strike connected. Kabuto used the chakra scalpel to finish off the next 2 clones, leaving only 2 remaining. Sakura quickly used her strongest genjutsu, Magen, Jubakusatsu, demonic illusion, tree-binding death, on Kabuto. Her one-legged opponent staggered as he felt the genjutsu take hold. Pushing his hands together he said, Kai, and broke the genjutsu. Gamma launched himself at Kabuto with an armored forearm intent on smashing his foe. Kabuto flipped up onto the ceiling to avoid the attack and sent a kunai toward the toad, who deflected it. Sakura launched her own kunai at Kabuto, who casually knocked them aside and then dodged the toad's tongue. One clone stayed near Sakura and the other advanced cautiously. Kabuto pushed off from the ceiling and agilely dodged the katana, Gamma, and the thrown kunai. Pushing chakra into his foot, he flashed forward and slashed Gamma across the chest with the chakra scalpel. Blood pooled in the toad's right lung. He exploded in a puff of smoke back to his home. Sakura hoped he would be healed before he drowned in his own blood. Both Naruto and Jiraiya liked Gamma. The Naruto clone jumped backward and said, Sakura, get out of here, he's still too strong. Kabuto pushed on his glasses and smiled, yes, run away little girl. This isn't a place for civilians. Sakura backed up a step. Kabuto was confident in his victory. The only decision now was to play it safe and make good on his escape or kill this girl. Kabuto's eyes suddenly widened in horror as the real Sakura stabbed him in the back. He had only an instant to activate his cell regeneration jutsu, but it did little good with the kunai still buried in his heart. Kabuto instantly realized what had happened. The genin had layered her genjutsu. There was a second genjutsu overlapping the first illusion. Knowing what had happened was little comfort to Kabuto, who also realized his time in the world was up. Sakura left the kunai buried in Kabuto's heart. It had been a close call. If she had not had perfect chakra control, he could have sensed her chakra as she approached. She had used every ounce of stealth training her sensei had imparted to her. Knowing her opponent could regenerate, Sakura finished the job by taking a second kunai and brutally cutting into Kabuto's neck. Blood sprayed as she sawed through the artery, and then bone. Soon she had finished the brutal work of decapitation. Leaving nothing to chance, she took out one of her scrolls and unsealed it, allowing the oil to splash over Kabuto's corpse. Then she stepped back and used Kaiten, Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. The corpse was incinerated quite thoroughly. Sakura was breathing heavily. Multiple genjutsu and her Kaiten technique had left her very drained. She was worried about her teammates but knew she would be useless if she didn't take at least a brief breather. Break. The Hokage saw that attacks to the bulk of the creature did not seem to be effective. He raced onto one of the tails of the creature. It tried to snap him loose, but Jiraiya was too adept at chakra control to allow that to happen. One of the heads swiveled toward him and spat out acid. Jiraiya had to dodge off the snake to avoid it. One of the great tails slammed into the Hokage, throwing him down to the ground. If it had not been for Senjutsu, he probably would have broken several bones. Instead, he sprang up in an instant and created a humongous Rasengan that hit one of the descending heads in the face. The snake head gave a shriek of pain as its flesh was shredded. It reared back and away from the massive sphere. Seeing this happen, Orochimaru extended his sword from up high. The blade was now over 80 feet long as it tried to skewer Jiraiya. He dodged to the left and then charged up the side of the beast again. Anko Matarashi arrived on the scene and looked upon Orochimaru's ultimate form with wide eyes. She saw Naruto and Sasuke wounded, dozens of Naruto clones milling around, occasionally throwing an ignored kunai, and the Hokage racing up the eight-headed body at speeds she couldn't hope to match. Anko had not come all this way to just stand around and gawk. Biting her thumb, she said, Kuchio's no Jutsu, summoning technique, to bring in a relatively mindless giant snake. She couldn't risk bringing in any of the intelligent summons since they may not actually side with her against Orochimaru. The giant snake hissed and slithered toward the eight-headed monstrosity and was nearly instantly devoured by one of the 8 heads. Anko was shocked at the speed of the striking heads. Something that huge shouldn't be able to move that fast. Anko watched Jiraiya reach the top of the beast's neck. He was going for the Orochimaru inside one of the head's mouth. Kakuku, don't you realize this is me and I am it? The head closed its mouth and Orochimaru reappeared inside another mouth. Jiraiya spun the other way, narrowly avoiding being bitten by 2 of the heads. It's useless, this form is invincible. The wounds that the Hydra had suffered had already almost healed, no sign of scorch marks, and even the massive Rasengan's fury had failed to deal permanent damage. Jiraiya sensed Kakashi the moment before Orochimaru did. That moment was all that Kakashi needed. His Reikiri was brought forth in an instant and was rammed straight through one of the 8 heads. It pierced the snake head's brain with liquefying force and electrifying fury. Kakashi leapt down and away from the 8-headed snake and then used Kawarimi to avoid globs of acid from raining down on him. Jiraiya saw the wounded head hang limp. It wasn't regenerating from the wound. Orochimaru snarled in rage. It was Jiraiya's turn to laugh. I guess it's not so invincible after all. The entire massive bulk roiled and moved, forcing Jiraiya to jump off and cling to the nearby wall. The Hydra began spewing acid everywhere. Naruto and his clones used their wind jutsu to try to push the acid away. Sasuke dodged the acid and called out, Sensei, I'm useless here, I'm going to go find Sakura. Kakashi made the hand sign for agreement and called out to Naruto, bring out the battle toads. Naruto hated calling on the Kyuubi chakra, but he had used a lot of his own chakra today between wind jutsu, clones and getting wounded. He reminded himself that this monster, this freak, had killed his Gigi. Red chakra started to gather around him and he quickly made the hand seals necessary for the summoning. Kuchio's no Jutsu, summoning technique, one of Orochimaru's heads was already on its way to Naruto but was quickly intercepted by Gameiken's Sasumata. The weapon did not deal significant damage to the head, but it did bat it aside. Gameiken guarded Naruto as he stepped away from the Great Toad and summoned Gamabunter. Naruto repeated the effort and summoned the last of the three great battle toads, Gamma Hero. Anko was annoyed that the little genin had done far more in the battle than she had. She had seen Kakashi kill one of the heads and decided to copy that approach herself. She sped across the broken ground and planted chakra on the soles of her shoes and began climbing up the monster. Anko saw three of the heads battling the three great toads. Almost immediately Gamma Hero was knocked out of the fight as one of the massive hydra heads fainted with a bite and instead vomited acid that the dual-wielding toad only partially avoided. The acid burned horrible gaps into his arm. The sudden trauma required him to disperse back to Mount Myoboku. Anko saw Jiraiya near the top of one head only for another head to try to bite him off. With perfect control of his body, Jiraiya jumped atop the second head and drove a Rasengan into its skull. The head was racked in pain and its sudden snap shoved Jiraiya away. Anko saw that even the Rasengan had not fully pierced the apparent bone skull of the Hydra as the skin and scales started to regenerate before her eyes. Orochimaru appeared in front of Anko on her trip up the neck. He had risen up from the skin and seemed to be still attached to it. "I don't have time to play with you, Anko-chan," Orochimaru threatened and spewed out scores of snakes from his mouth. Anko responded with her own snake barrage from her sleeves. The two piles of snakes collided in mid-air, obscuring view for a moment. Orochimaru rose up again from underneath his former apprentice and attempted to drive a kunai into her back. Anko turned at the last moment and took the kunai across the ribs instead. She pushed herself away from her former sensei and fell off of the great beast. Anko's life would have ended there as one of the heads chomped down in the middle of her flight path. However, Kakashi slammed into her, changing her trajectory. They both landed painfully and Kakashi rolled up and quickly popped a soldier pill. While a soldier pill had diminishing returns the more powerful you were, it still provided some chakra and stamina renewal on cage-level fighters. Anko thanked Kakashi as she clutched her side. The blade had actually bit into her rib bone, such was the force of the attack. Kakashi stood upright in front of the wounded Anko. Two kunai in his fists, he took up a defensive position. One of Orochimaru's massive heads snapped down, ready to kill both Anko and the foolish Kakashi who was trying to defend her. Anko screamed at Kakashi to move, but Kakashi stood resolute in front of the descending maw. Anko saw a distortion around the path of the head, and then abruptly the Hydra head began to twist and turn and collapse in on itself. Nothing remained of the head except a bloody stump that now hung limp. The Orochimaru hissed in hatred of the Sharingan. Kakashi had used Kamui again. Anko saw Kakashi nearly collapse from chakra exhaustion. Anko grabbed the Jonin and did a shunshin away from the Hydra. Naruto had seen what was going on and was worried about his sensei. In every fight they had ever been in, Kakashi was a solid rock that could be relied on. After using Reikiri and his weird eye power multiple times, it looked like he may be out of the fight. Gamabunter and Gameiken were heroically battling the Hydra heads but could make little headway and were unable to strike a killing blow. They had seen the fate of their comrade and were quick to avoid the acidic spittle. The Naruto clones had extreme difficulty getting anywhere with climbing the Hydra. The one bum leg made it very difficult to stay on the roiling beast's body. A few of the clones became frustrated and took out their anger by using futon, Shinkugyoku wind-release vacuum bullets, at the normal-sized Orochimaru whenever he popped up somewhere on the massive form. However, the attacks were ineffective and just served to exhaust the chakra in the clone, forcing it to pop. Naruto racked his brain for how else he could help the fight. While Naruto was thinking, Jiraiya was continuing his assault on the beast. His Rasengan hadn't worked because he had been thrown off before it penetrated deep enough. This time he used his greatly enhanced senjutsu provided strength to ram a kunai deep into one of the snake's heads. That did the trick and the third head had fallen. Orochimaru nearly skewered Jiraiya, whose arm was a good 2 feet inside the snake's cranium. A pivot of inches saved him from Orochimaru's extendable sword. Naruto saw this and thought, 2 feet to hit the brain, all I need to do is hit it with one of my remaining chakra kunai wrapped in explosive tags and I can take one down. New plan formed. Naruto studied the attacks that were being made on his two summons. He lined up his shot and then launched chakra kunai with perfect aim. The kunai slammed into its targeted and then Naruto detonated the tags. Naruto made a very unlike shinobi fist pump in the air in excitement. The exhausted Kakashi sometimes wished his Sharingan wasn't quite so observant. He had seen the successful attack and had been filled with pride for his student. And then he saw the fist bump of excitement in the middle of a cage-level battle and had to sigh. Orochimaru was now deeply concerned. Half of his ultimate form was defeated and Jiraiya was still going strong. The two battle toads were tiring, but he couldn't ignore them either. To make it even worse, more reinforcements arrived. 2 Anbu members who had chased after Anko finally arrived on the scene. Orochimaru immediately knew the identity of one of the Anbu as he used Mokuton wood released to try to imprison his massive form. It was a laughable failure. His form could not be restrained, but it did slow him a fraction, and that was dangerous against the Godime. The other Anbu circled outside of the immediate fight looking for an opening. Orochimaru changed tactics and began to fire elemental jutsu at the toads and Naruto. Jiraiya was simply too hard to hit with them, but if he could get rid of the distractions, he could then focus on the biggest threat on the field. Bullets of flame, blasts of wind, disrupting earth jutsus flayed at Naruto, his summons and the Anbu. Naruto barely survived by hiding behind Gameiken and was also forced to dissipate. The focus, however, allowed Jiraiya to finish off another branch of Orochimaru's body. The Hokage shouted out, "Only 3 left, Orochimaru, and it's over." Orochimaru screamed in inarticulate rage. His calculating mind going over the battlefield searching for some hidden advantage he could exploit and finding nothing. Jiraiya used Doton, Yumi Numa Earth Release, Swamp of the Underworld, in conjunction Tenzo to further trap Orochimaru in place. Orochimaru frantically fought against Jiraiya with the sword of Kusanagi, shielding the great hydra heads as best he could. He was forced to extend the blade to deflect Naruto's final chakra-infused kunai from piercing another skull. The infuriating Jinchuriki simply would not die. Gamabunta roared and finally managed to get his blade into the mouth of his foe. Using his massive strength, he jammed it up through the snake and into its brain. Kakashi saw the battle nearing its end and knew this would be when Orochimaru could be at his most dangerous. A wounded animal was never as vicious as when it was backed into a corner. It was time to end this before Orochimaru pulled out another hidden jutsu. Kakashi rapidly opened the Gate of Opening and the Gate of Healing, the only 2 gates he could open. The effect increased Kakashi's strength, but more importantly, the second gate briefly replenished his chakra. Kakashi created a shadow clone as subtly as possible and had it pretend to be exhausted, while the real Kakashi used all of his skill at stealth to slowly get closer to his enemy. Anko's eyes were shining with joy. This was it. Her hated betrayer was going to die. She saw the Hokage charge in over and over again against the last 2 heads. One was busy dealing with Gamabunta while the second was under constant assault from Jiraiya. It was easy for Kakashi to strike the one attacking Gamabunta with another Reikiri, leaving just one left. Kakashi leapt from the dying Hydra head to the last and raced toward Orochimaru. He dodged a sweep of Orochimaru's blade and stabbed out with his kunai. The snake Sannin blocked, but he had allowed Jiraiya to finish off the last head. Orochimaru's scream made everyone's ears ring as the massive Hydra collapsed to the floor of the ruined base. The real Orochimaru was utterly drained of chakra and could do nothing more than try to crawl away. It was a pitiful and pathetic sight. Anko was giddy with joy and moved forward to be the one to deal the finishing blow. The Kakashi clone stopped her. "Don't take foolish chances, I'll do it." The Kakashi clone moved forward and without any fanfare stabbed Orochimaru in the back of the head. Orochimaru lay still. Kakashi's Sharingan eye swept the area for any signs of his chakra. His eyes spotted a small white snake vainly trying to slither away. Kakashi was on it in a heartbeat and burned it with a low-level fire jutsu. The Hokage used his senjutsu senses to see if any last lingering presence remained. Sensing none, he took a deep breath. It's over. Orochimaru is dead. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.